So we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. We're going to give people a chance to filter in. But while we're waiting, we have a nifty little poll here. Since we're talking about choosing the right RV for you and all the different things that go into that decision, out of curiosity, do you already have your eye on something, or do you already have an RV that maybe you're looking to upgrade? And so I'm going to launch a poll that's just asking that information. What kind of RV do you currently have, or are you interested in? If you'll take a second while we're waiting to go ahead and answer that, and that way Brandon and Kerensa have an idea of who we're talking to and a little what we're going to cover today. Well, I guess they already have an idea what we're covering, but.
What about you, Georgianne? What kind of RV are you looking at?
I actually, just for me alone, I am looking at a teardrop because my husband's job does not allow him to travel as often as I get to. And so I'm like, why would I tow a big thing? So a teardrop would be perfect, except that we have about 180 pounds worth of dog that would want to go with us on occasion. So, which you can actually hear at this very moment.
There's a company right here near where we are. They sell a trailer called No Boundaries. And it's a teardrop, but it's a different configuration. It's kind of cool. I keep driving past them. Want to go check them out.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds cool. I actually was even looking for a while at, the name escapes me, but they're basically huge tents that break down. They're on trailers. It's not a pop-up camper, but it's very, very similar. And like the beds lay out to be a king-size bed when you put all the panels down, but you can also do like 2 twins, and they're really cool, but they're also not very weather hardy for traveling in like 40 and below and that sort of thing. It'd be a little bit too chilly at night.
Yeah.
We started in a pop-up trailer, and it had a king-size bed on one side and a full on the other. And It was nice. I mean, again, it's a pop-up, so it's not as warm, but it had a furnace, and you could pull the curtains and, snuggle up.
Stay in the middle.
Get a sleeping bag.
Yeah. Outside.
That's awesome.
Over there.
I know I thought about it, although getting to camp in the exterior like I have been, the reflectics up in the windows and stuff makes such a huge difference in drafts and insulation. This last time whenever we were out in Quartzsite, I put several layers up underneath all my bedding as well. It was perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Wow, that's a good idea.
It was awesome. I was very toasty there. I felt so people were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh no, I am perfect. I am toasty and warm. I don't want to get up in the morning." All right. So it looks like we've got several answers already. So far, there's a tie between Class A and Class C motorhomes as far as what people have or they're looking to purchase. And then we've got also fifth wheels and Class C's and B's and the teardrops. There's another teardrop fan. And yeah, so we've got a couple different options. I'm going to go ahead and close this out so we can get going. But thank you guys for taking the chance to chime in. And feel free, of course, if you have any questions as we go along. There's the Q&A tool down here at the bottom, as well as the chat screen. And I can keep track of those so that whenever we get through Brandon and Kerensa's information, we can ask those questions. So if you have anything in particular you want to know about a certain type of RV, we might be able to help you out with that. So my name is Georgianne. I'm the marketing director for Xscapers RV Club. Welcome to Xscapers webinars. We have Brandon and Kerensa with us today. They are the founders and the leaders of RV to Freedom. They took their years of experience on the road and turned it into a group where they could help other people find what works for them on the road in a lot of different ways. They offer a wide variety of information. And so we're really excited to have them on today to help talk about some of the different things to consider when you're looking for your first RV, or when you're maybe not happy with what you have right now, and the reasons why that could be, what to look for in your next one, that sort of thing. Will you guys take a moment to introduce yourselves?
Sure. So as you said, we're Kerensa and Brandon, and we did start RV to Freedom because of issues like this. So we've been on the road for over 4 years now, and we've been through a couple RVs full time, and we know how much information we needed when we started.
Yeah, we had either a hard time finding what we were looking for, or way too much information on the other end, or way too many opinions that made it hard for us to finally make the decision to pull the trigger.
So that's why we have RV to Freedom, and that's why we've kind of dedicated ourselves to RVing topics like this.
And also because RVing is kind of cool.
Well, right. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, in case you guys have just joined us, let's go over a couple little house things real quick, and then we'll let them get started. like I said earlier, if you have any questions that come up as Brandon and Kerensa go through their information, feel free to use the Q&A tool. It could be at the bottom of your screen or the side, depending on what your setup is like. You can use that to send a question through, and it'll hold it so that we can get to it at the end. Or if you can't get that to work for you for some reason, feel free to use the chat screen that's off to the side. If you have any tech issues, go ahead and use the chat screen, and I'll do what I can to help out while they're talking. And of course, also, if you need to reach out, we'll have some information at the end in case you think of anything that you can't think of at the moment, you might want to follow up on later. We'll have some different ways you can get a hold of either Brandon and Kerensa or me, whatever the case may be that you need. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Do you want to take it away?
All right. Thanks. So as we mentioned, we've had a couple RVs, and we thought we'd just kind of give you an idea of our journey on that, because it is a little different and for each person. And we started out with a pop-up camper. We were talking to Georgianne before the formal introductions here.
Yeah, we used to live right near New York City, so we needed something to get away from the city and get out. So the pop-up camper was great for us. We could grab it on the weekend, we could tow it with anything and get out away from town. But when we decided to go full-time the decision was about 6 years ago, but when we finally did it 4 years ago, we wanted something more than a pop-up, even though we have seen people full-time in a pop-up.
Yes.
So we started doing the research and falling into the rabbit hole and going deeper and deeper. And we were coming at it from normal people. We were sticks and bricks people. We had a house, then we had an apartment. And, we didn't have this idea of the mobility and what we really needed in an RV. So we were asking everyone else. We were getting tons of opinions, and all those opinions led us to a 40-foot diesel pusher,
right? Class
A motorhome, which was beautiful, and it was great, and it was powerful.
Had lots of room, had a lot of amenities in it, and really was super comfortable. Yeah. But as time went on, we found it to be a little big for us.
Yeah, I think it was other people's dream and not exactly our dream. And
we listened to a lot of advice about other people's dreams.
And you'll see that a lot as you're poking around on the forums and the different groups and reading things. You'll get these answers that are just like, well, I would never full-time in anything smaller than this, or I would never full-time without this.
And you must have you must have this to be a full-time, or you must have this length if you need to have this, you must have this much space, or you can't. I mean, people think there's no way you could do it in a pop-up, but yet we met people who have. So
yeah. And what we've come to realize is people are extremely adaptable. We can real quickly get comfortable to pretty much anything. And knowing that kind of helps you understand that maybe you don't need as much as you think you do, or maybe you do, depending on your situation. So from the diesel, we downsized to a 30-foot Class A, which is still big to a lot of our friends.
Right. But we think we could adapt to almost anything at this point. But really, you've got to figure out you. And that's the thing, as we said, there's many opinions out there, and you can always take them, listen to them, learn from them, but then you need to put yourself in the picture. So first thing you really need to figure out is why you want to RV.
Yeah. Which seems like an easy question. I want to travel.
Right.
Okay, but do you really want to travel? Like, you want to travel a lot? Well, then maybe something that's a little smaller and a little more mobile is better for you. Or do you want to go somewhere and be in that place for a while? Then maybe something that's a little bigger, a little more comfortable is better. I mean, there's more nuance to it than just, I want to go.
Right.
And just as there's millions of different types of people that choose all different types of houses, the same goes for RV.
And so then you need to figure out what you'll be doing in it. And this could be working, like we actually work from our RV. So we wanted to make sure that we had a workspace. We needed 2 places that we could set up computers for each of us and sit all day if we needed to. Mm-hmm. My voice is going.
But even when we started out, when we had an office at the house, it was messy. And that was my fault. I know. And so when we were starting out, Kerensa very much wanted an office that we could close off and not look at. And, that was a nice idea. But that means you got to have a separate space that is closed off at some point in time that's not usable for other functions. And it meant that the RV gets a little bit bigger. And what we didn't realize in RV life, because we travel so often, is we have to put everything away when we travel. So it may be messy for a week or two, but eventually it's going to get put away and we're going to travel and it's going to be fine.
Yeah, it actually tends to stay cleaner now.
Yeah.
Which makes me happy.
Yeah. So
yeah, so if you working, you want to take that into account. Or are you going to be doing hobbies in your RV, and what kind of hobbies are they? We know a lot of people who have like sewing machines and they do a lot of sewing. So they need somewhere to be able to set up that sewing machine, whether it's their dinette table or if they have a separate space for it and somewhere to store it. So think about that type of stuff that you want to do in it. And another kind of simple one is, are you a homebody, or are you only going to sleep in your RV? Because if you're somebody who actually does enjoy being home all the time, you'll go explore and do things when you're out, but you might want to sit around the campsite and just kind of relax a lot. And if it's rainy outside, maybe you'd rather be inside reading a book and doing all of that.
But keep in mind, even with that, you don't need that much space for it, because like you said, on a nice day, you can be outside. To read a book, go lay in bed. You know, you don't need to have a separate reading area where you can go and read, so you don't have to carry around an extra 10 feet of RV so you can read a book.
Yeah, there's not going to be reading nooks much.
Yeah.
But just kind of think about if you like to be in your space more, because if you're kind of the adventurer who is out all day, you know, maybe you're on your mountain bike and then you're going out here and you're going out there, and all you're really doing is sleeping in your RV. Why do you want to carry a bunch of extra space around?
Yeah,
I mean, you could be Georgiana, get a teardrop at that point.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, your RV is basically your crash pad.
Right. Maybe a bathroom, you know, like sleeping in bathroom.
And for us, we are more homebodies, but because of RV life, we're always somewhere new. We're always somewhere we want to be. We're always something we want to go see. So yes, we're in the RV, but when we're in the RV, we're cooking, we're sleeping, we're working. And if we're not doing those things, we're outside. We're gone. We're out exploring something or driving around or doing something. So you have to try to put that baggage from your sticks and bricks life where, you know, you wake up, you go to work, you come home, you watch TV, you do it all over again. You have to try to think about what's life going to be like, not what it's like now, but what's going to be like in the future.
Right. And that goes for, because here we can even be talking about full-timers, but also part-timers and weekenders. Mm-hmm. Weekenders, I mean, you really probably are going out a lot. Although we found when we did weekends, sometimes all we wanted to do was sit around the campsite and relax because we had worked all week and that's all we really wanted to do.
But even then, we were sitting outside unless I was taking one of my midday naps. Right. Because a midday nap in a warm pop-up camper when you're an RVer is like, on a weekender is like the best thing.
Well, anyway, we haven't done that in a while.
No.
The next question you want to ask yourself is, who is traveling with you? Is it just you? Do you have a spouse? Do you have kids? And do you have pets even that are traveling with you? Because you really want to have a space for everyone in there, and that's everyone to sleep. You know, even your pets. Maybe they're sleeping in the bed with you. Maybe not. Maybe you just need somewhere to put their dog bed. And depending on how big your dog is, you might want a little bit more room or not.
And on that same point, I mean, litter box is a big deal. If you have a cat, where's that going to go? But there's a lot of creative things you can do where, again, you don't have to dedicate a whole giant space to it. And then you want to have sleeping areas for everybody. But if you're a grandparent or a parent and you're thinking, well, my kids are going to come with me occasionally, maybe once or twice a year and camp with me, I need to have sleeping space for them. Do you really? I mean, do you need to carry around a whole extra bed for 2 times a year? Or can you get them an air mattress or a tent, or let them rent a cabin in the RV park you're in?
And a lot of the couches, they fold out in the beds too, which is good enough for a weekend here and there.
Yeah. And even, you know, if my parents were to come and stay in the RV, we would sleep on the couch because we know it's not as comfortable, and they can have the bed, and that'll be fine for the few days that it happens a year, you know. So again, let's not carry around a whole extra bedroom, because this isn't a house, it's an RV, and it's got to go places. And you have this compromise in RVs between mobility and comfort. And the bigger and more comfortable it is, the less nimble it is. It's going to be bigger and harder to get around places. The more mobile it is, the less comfortable. So it's just finding your balance. And I think that's what tripped us up in the beginning was we didn't understand that.
Yeah, probably. So we made it very comfortable.
Yeah, but for the kind of camping we wanted to do, it wasn't as mobile. And even this RV, we thought, oh, this one's so small compared to that one. Even this one's reaching a point where we're trying to push it further than it wants to go. And so, I can see in our path, at least for the short term, might be going smaller. And then at some point we might switch and start going bigger again, because it's just the lifestyle we want to lead.
And this goes along with it, but you need to figure out what type of RVer are you? Where do you want to take this thing?
Yeah.
What kind of stuff do you want to do in it? I mean, if you were a frequent traveler, you might want less hassle and not have to set up and break down as much. As someone who snowbirds, maybe they want more space and they don't mind having a lot more breakdown and hooking up and all of that kind of stuff that takes more time because they're not moving as often.
Exactly. And if you want to be a boondocker, or even if you're not sure, but it's kind of interesting and kind of exciting idea, then you're going to want more capacity. You're going to want more cargo capacity, more water tank sizes. That's weird. Bigger water tanks. And you're probably going to want an RV that's a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter vertically and shorter in length, so that you can push further out into the woods or out into the desert. That being said, though, the desert Southwest can pretty much handle any size RV you can throw at it.
Yeah.
But the smaller you are, the more options that open up.
It just gives you an idea of what kind of things are important to you when you're looking at it, because you might want to have more space if you're not moving. You might want to have all the room that you can if you're sitting somewhere for 6 months. But everyone's different. So just figure out what's important to you. And that's kind of the key for our next thing, is
exactly
figuring out what is important to you.
Yeah, building that needs and wants list. Keeping in mind that you and your family are the most important part. What other people think about your RV, what your other family that's not RVing thinks about it, does not matter at all. What the outside of the RV looks like doesn't matter. Now, there are some parks that may limit you if your RV is over 10 years old. But for the most part, other RVers don't care what you look like, don't care what your RV looks like. They just want to hang out and have fun and talk about black tanks and solar panels, because that's what we always talk about.
Yeah, but you just need to figure out your priorities. So you want to make a list and put everything you think is important to have in it. But then you need to divide it up into 2 parts. You have your needs and your wants, and they're different. And you've got to figure out which is which and make sure you know the difference between the 2.
Yeah, you really need to be honest here, because you need a toilet, maybe. You don't need a king-size bed. You could survive on a queen-size bed. And it's funny when we hear people's needs and wants lists a lot. It's like, I need a washer and dryer and a dishwasher and a king-size bed. Like, no, you want all those things. Yeah. But you need wheels and a fuel tank and water tanks, and you need insulation, maybe, depending on your choices.
And those are the major needs, but there are some things that you can classify as needs. It's like, especially the insulation. If you are going to be traveling where it's cooler or even where it's hot, and not staying in 70-degree weather all the time.
Yeah, insulation is not just for cold weather. It's in RV life, a lot of times it's mostly for hot weather. It's when the sun's beating down on the RV, because the wheels on the RV are for cold weather. Yeah. You engage the wheels and you drive away from the cold weather. So a lot of times it's the heat that you're dealing with.
But you can put that down on your needs list. I'm trying to think of another example offhand, but I can't. We've become so more into like everything's kind of a want. Sometimes it gets hard.
It is, but like if you're a boondocker, you want a boondock. Right. You need, if you have 2 RVs in front of you and you can't make a decision, one of them's got 5 gallons more water capacity. Decision, there it is.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to what you want to do.
And like on that note, trying to think too, like a boondocker for us, when we were trying to look for this current RV, our need was we wanted a propane oven. We had a convection oven in the last one, and that became a need for us because we really didn't want to have to try to keep the energy up to run a convection oven, because I do like to bake and we do like to boondock.
Yeah. And another one that
became a need over a want.
Right.
And that's something that when you walk into the RV, you want to be able to look and say, this fits my needs.
Yeah.
And if it has wants on it, bonus.
Yeah. And you have to be careful with RV manufacturers these days. They're selling to your emotions and to your eyes, and maybe not to your brain as much. So you'll walk into an RV and it'll have the Korean countertops and the residential refrigerator and all the induction stuff. And it's just got everything that you think a house should have because you come from house life. But if your want is to boondock, you can boondock with all of those things, but it makes it a little bit trickier. And if you want to simplify the amount of solar you need or the amount of power generation you need, if you can have a propane fridge and a propane oven and propane water heaters and those sorts of things, it can just make it a little easier to make that transition and a little less stress when you're out there. And that was one of the big things in this RV, because when we started, she knew about boondocking, and boondocking's exploded since we started, so everybody knows about it now. But I saw it as this thing where you needed an expedition vehicle with huge water tanks, and it was this very specific thing. It had to be 4-wheel drive, and so in my mind, that was just not something we were going to do.
Oh, I thought it was, I didn't even really know that much about it, because in my mind, getting off the grid was backpacking into the forest, because we were on the East Coast and we would go into the woods, and you're not getting RV into the woods.
Yeah.
It wasn't happening. So it wasn't even on our radar as something to do.
And we didn't even know how much land is available for boondocking all over the country, but especially out west. And then as we started RVing, we started meeting people, and we started finding them up in the woods in these beautiful little spots. And then we were stuck in an RV park because we were a little bit big. That's what really kind of motivated us to make our change.
Yeah. So it became more of something that we wanted to do, and that's what we focused on when looking for this RV, those things that would allow us to get out there more and allow us to boondock easier. So that is something that became needs for us. But again, you just want to figure out your priorities and actually put them into the 2 columns and prioritize them. Yeah. Because when you walk into looking at RVs, you want to be able to check those off and run through your needs list and say, okay, it has everything I need. What else does it have that I want? Because that is, it's great if you can get all those wants in there, but that's something that you can compromise on.
Yeah. And compromise is a big deal when you're shopping for an RV. Compromise between mobility and comfort, compromise between your needs and your wants. You'll find the RV that's good enough for right now. And you will change, especially if you're not a full-timer yet and you're planning to go full-time. The day you start going full-time, you're going to start becoming a different person. And it's really hard to know what you're going to need out there. So there's another idea of buying your last RV first, which a lot of people don't even know what their first RV should be. So I don't understand how you can buy your last one first. So that's another one that,
that's kind of the thing that got us into trouble.
Yeah.
When we bought our first RV. It was, the last one you want to have the biggest thing.
Yeah, so we bought the biggest, most expensive thing we could afford, and it turned out to not be the right thing, which made it very expensive to get rid of.
Right.
If we were lucky and it was the right thing, it would have been easy. So if you're not sure what you want, perhaps start cheaper. Mm-hmm. Save some of your money back so that if it's the one you like, then great. You started cheap and you got extra money, go have fun. If it's not, then you've got some money there to make the switch when the time comes.
Yeah. And I just want to repeat this, because this is like the most important thing, is that you and your family are the most important piece of the puzzle. It's the most important thing you need to figure out is you in the RV, and if it fits your needs.
Yeah. Not what I think. Yeah. Not what your parents think, not what your coworkers think, and not what other RVers think, or people who don't RV,
Right. Right. Yeah. What works for someone else may be a great choice, but it may not be the right one for you. There is no one type of RV that's perfect for full-timing. There's no one RV that's perfect for families. It is really dependent upon you and your needs, what you plan to do.
Exactly. So that being said, the perfect RV is a 1996 Holiday Rambler. I'm just kidding. There's no perfect RV. There's just the perfect one for now. And it's a pretty fun life no matter how you do it. And the people we've met, from the pop-up camper to the Unimog to the 45-foot tag axle Integra, all are enjoying it just as much. So.
Yeah. Once you get out here, RVing's kind of the great equalizer in that respect. You know, we all get to meet up and we all have the same amount of fun.
And we all have to dump our own black tanks. So no matter how fancy
true.
your RV is, you're still dealing with the sneaky
great
sleepy.
Equalizer, the black tank. Yeah. And we'll even say, even if you have a composting toilet, you're still dealing with your stuff. So it's still the great equalizer.
Unless you have people dealing with it for you, then yes, you're in a whole different category.
Right.
But you're not listening to this webinar either. You're just having it taken care of.
Well, we did want to go ahead and let you guys know too that we do have a worksheet that walks through these questions with you. If you want to grab that so you can write down all this stuff. And we have actually, Jordan has it up there. All right.
The power pack.
Yeah, we included our cheat sheet on it. It's an RV shopping cheat sheet. So you get the walkthrough with the questions, trying to figure out how you can choose your RV. So there's the type of the questions and spaces for your needs and wants.
And then there's a shopping cheat sheet we put together that helps keep you focused on what's important in the RV and not let your eyes and the lipstick that they put on the RV get ahead of you. So it talks you through the important things that you can't change easily, like the tank sizes and the cargo capacities and things like that. Paint, wallpaper, cabinet colors, all that can be dealt with, but it's really hard to go in and upgrade the cargo capacity or upgrade the water tanks and stuff like that. So we try to keep you focused. So when you're out at shows or you're out at dealers, you can kind of look through and make sure you check all the boxes and pay attention to what's important in the RV.
Right, because it's so easy to just go in there and say, oh, this is beautiful, and like, I like it, and then go home to think about it and go, what did it have?
It was brown. I remember it was brown inside.
So these two things will keep you in check. Let's say you create your needs and wants list, make sure you go through it when you go through the RV, and then check off the boxes on the cheat sheet. And at least you'll have a better idea when you go back to look at it and review it and go, oh, okay, it had this type of thing, this type of fridge or whatever size tanks.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so if you want to find a copy of that, you can go to go.rvtofreedom.com/powerpack. I have the address for you right here. And you just put a little bit of information in, you can download it and see all those different pages. And I was just flipping through it myself for the fun of it. And there's a lot of really great information in there. So definitely, if you're still in a search for what works the best for you, I highly recommend you go ahead and take a look at that. Like I said, it's free. And so it's an awesome resource to help you get your ideas together and organize your shopping process a little bit more, because that can be daunting. I've had to shop for both a house, and then I'm in the process of shopping for an RV, and it's a lot to think about at once. This is a great way to organize those thoughts and get some ideas together. So thank you for writing that.
Yeah, we had to shop for an RV while we were still living in an RV. So for one scary week, we actually did 2 RVs.
So I have a question for you both. You said you started in one RV in your pop-up, and then you've tried different ones. And you said the process is kind of complicated at times to move on to the next one. What kinds of things, if we have people who are currently in RVs that are looking to change out in the near future, what kinds of things can they expect out of that process? Like what all should they be considering?
Well, one is just, if you have financing on your RVs, you have to figure out having financing on 2 RVs.
Right. The bank, when we called, they're like, wait, are you keeping the other RV or not? And we were like, no, we're going to sell it. And so our credit was good and our income, all that stuff worked out. So they were like, okay, we can let you finance the second RV as well, in the hopes that we sold the first one. But yeah, that was a big tricky part, because we bought this RV from a private seller, and then we sold our other RV to a dealer. And so it wasn't like we traded it in, which would have been easy. Because the trade-in's easy. You pull them door to door and you just move stuff place to place. We had to make sure the RV park had a spot for both RVs.
Especially as a full-timer. That was the
And this was in the peak snowbird season in Mesa, Arizona. So we were lucky. They had one spot across from our RV for one night.
Right. So everything in one day got moved. We have known somebody that they put the RVs kind of across from each other and like a board, so they could walk across from one doorway to the other one. like carrying things back and forth.
And then Bob asked in the chat, what did we do with the old RV? And we actually sold it to a dealer, which is the worst way to get rid of an RV. But it had a lot of issues that we didn't want to put onto someone else. And we had to get out of it.
Yeah,
we had to get out of it. We had it listed privately for a while, and we called a bunch of dealers and finally found one that would buy it for a price that was close enough to reasonable. But being on the road makes it trickier.
Right. We couldn't sit and wait for it to sell. We needed to leave because, as Brandon said, it was high snowbird season, and we only had our campsite until like the next week. We had already been there a month, but we hadn't listed it right away until we knew we were going to find something. That was we couldn't move out of our RV until we had a new place to live.
Right. So yeah, we did a lot of shopping when we finally found this RV, and we had to buy it because it fit a lot of our needs, but not all of them, but most of them, good enough. And this was the best one we had found of all the ones we had searched for. And so we had to do it, and it was, it's one of the things we regret, but we got out here and we're still having fun. So whatever.
Well, tying into that, Reynolds has a question. So your 30-foot RV, is it a gas or a diesel, and why did you choose one over the other?
Well, this RV is actually gas. So we did go from a diesel pusher to a gas RV. And we felt pretty confident doing that because a lot of our friends have gas. And we saw them all take it to Alaska. And we're like, whatever, we'll be fine.
Yeah, a lot of our friends have gas RVs. And they have older ones, too, with lots of miles on them. They're still going strong.
Yeah.
And our decision with our budget was we could get an older diesel, or we could get a newer gas. And because of the issues we had with the RV, the engine and the drivetrain are all pretty reliable, and they all last a long time. But the house doesn't, especially if it's not taken care of well. And so we opted for a newer house that's gas. And then the size.
And then, the size too, because now they've started making some diesel RVs that are short again. But there was a long period where they weren't making them. Yeah. It was like back in the 90s. They're harder to find. So we wanted something shorter. And so it was kind of an automatic gas choice from that.
And so we've been very happy with this. We tow, I think the second question was, do we tow something? We tow a SUV, and it's 5,000 pounds. So it's right at the limit of what this is allowed to tow. And it handles it well. When we go through Colorado, which we're about to go through next week, we'll probably not tow through Colorado.
We're in Colorado.
Oh yeah, we've been in Utah for so long. Now we're in Grand Junction. It's just the edge of Colorado. But when we go through the mountains, we won't tow through the mountains. She'll drive separately just to take the strain off the engine because it is gas. At elevation, it loses power. And it doesn't have all the torque of a diesel, but
we've been through a lot of passes with it, but the Rockies are a little different.
Yeah, these are 10,000 foot passes. We've been through 5,000, 6,000 foot passes fine.
But our diesel, we went through the Rockies in the diesel, and it had some problems trying to go through those passes too. So
yeah, and there's a couple of things that play there. One is our diesel was 32,000 pounds. Mm-hmm. This is 20,000 pounds, so it's a whole different animal to push up a hill. And we've seen some manufacturers lately that they put a diesel engine in a 32,000 pound Class 8 motorhome, but it's like a 330 horsepower diesel, where you'll see the same manufacturer right next door, same size, same weight, with a 400 horsepower diesel. And they're kind of playing a game with you because you need diesel because people told you need diesel. And this one says diesel and it's really cheap. So it's like, oh, okay, well, it's diesel and it's cheap. Well, yes, but it's underpowered diesel. And, it's not going to give you the performance that everybody's thinking. So diesel isn't just diesel. It's the right size engine for the right size RV.
Right.
And ideally, a bigger engine than what it's spec'd with originally would be awesome. We saw an old country coach with a 450 horsepower diesel. That would have been great.
Nice. Yeah. So Julie has a question thinking about the age of rigs you mentioned a bit ago. So she's been advised not to get a brand new rig, and she's been told that it takes a year or two to get a lot of the bugs out. Have you guys found this to be true?
Unfortunately, yes. We would love to say that that doesn't happen, but the problem is people are used to, these are vehicles, even if it's a trailer, it's still a vehicle, it has wheels. And You think vehicle, you think car. I mean, you can buy a new car and drive away and not have a problem. RVs aren't cars.
Yeah.
It's as we mentioned, the engine and the chassis, that stuff is a car and usually doesn't have many problems. It's the
house has lots of handwork involved in it. So there's lots of things that just don't fit right and don't work right, and things wiggle themselves loose. And so if you're buying a new one just because you think I'll buy new and I won't have problems, that's not the right reason. Now, if you're buying a new one because you want a new one and for other reasons, then that's fine. But yes, they do take a large depreciation right up front, and they continue to depreciate over their life. So if you could buy a used one where someone's shaking it out a little bit.
Yeah, because they call it the shakedown. It's like a shakedown over the past. During the warranty period, basically, you're trying to get everything that possibly breaks and happens during it fixed in that warranty period.
And the downsize of RV service is there's usually a long line. It's not like car service where you make an appointment, you go in, you're probably out the same day. It's oftentimes you got to leave it for a couple of weeks. It could even be a month in a high season. Like if it's like right now,
especially warranty work.
Or any kind of real service. Like right now they're slammed because everybody's getting their RVs out of storage for the winter. Yeah. They're about to take off for spring or summer vacation, so they're getting all their services done. Like you couldn't expect just to go in and get something fixed. So if it's out of warranty, then you're not tied to warranty and you can deal with it on your own or fix it yourself, which is what we do for most things. But I mean, if you're buying it to avoid problems, you're probably still going to have some problems. Right.
There are some people who've never had an issue with their new RV, and the same thing with the old RV. You know, you can go either way. But in new RVs, you can't expect them to work right out of the box, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few friends with new RVs that have had to have their entire floors replaced.
Yeah.
So, it goes both ways. So in our opinion, if you don't have a ton of money to spend, go used. Even if it's just a couple years used, something with a little bit of miles on it, so it's been used. It usually serves itself really well.
So Reynaldus asked, what brand did you choose, and was it something special or just kind of a luck of the draw whenever you were shopping for your RVs at the different times?
We did look at all brands because we knew more of the size and that specification that we wanted. We looked at all brands just to keep an open mind. Mm-hmm. We did end up with a Newmar.
Yeah, and we were kind of started to narrow it down between Newmar and Tiffin and Winnebago, which is like the trifecta you always hear on Facebook. But in our first RV, we had a National, which is a company that's no longer in business, but they built really good RVs. Right. But we didn't know anything about brands then, and you can listen online. Oh, I'd never buy a Thor. Well, Thor owns like 30 brands,
including
Airstream. So there's more to it than just knocking a brand out. So we tried to keep an open mind. But as we were more experienced in this purchase, so as we were looking at these RVs, we could really see, okay, I like this kind of mechanism for the slide. I don't like that. When I open the cabinets, everything's labeled on the wiring. All the wiring's labeled. Well, that shows me they put a little extra thought into it. Small things like that. And then you start, there's Newmar and Tiffin especially have reputations for doing a little bit better job.
Right. I think both of them do. And one of the kickers for us that's been nice is that we can call Newmar up and get help. We haven't had to that often, but we did have a couple things where we needed help. And because we had a brand that wasn't in business anymore before, that wasn't an option. Yeah,
there was nobody to call. And that's really surprised me. I've used Newmar's online technical support where you can just type something in. And I expect a canned email response, but somebody called me. They called me and I didn't buy this new from them. They don't really have an obligation to me.
Yeah, but it's not under warranty.
No, but they called me and I had an issue with an electrical component that they sent me wiring diagrams. They sent me instructions on how to test it. And that's what's the real big difference between these brands. It's not that they're necessarily built so much better. They're built a little better, but it's that there's somebody on the other end with documentation to help you figure things out when you have issues.
And good customer service. That's what it comes down to a lot.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice because like you guys said, no RV is going to be completely perfect out of the box. And even an RV 5 to 10 years old, there are wear and tear issues and there are things that come up, and there are accidents that you couldn't ever anticipate happening, that just stuff happens. So that customer service aspect is incredibly important, and having a resource you can go to that doesn't necessarily require you taking it to a mechanic every single time something goes wonky. So that's great advice. That's a very good point. So I'm glad Newmar's been awesome to you guys.
You know, a lot of times people, they get this, well, you know, why didn't they use a better part here? Why didn't they do a better thing there? But if you consider that you're buying a house, you're buying all your furniture, all of your appliances, and a bus chassis that is put on if you're doing a motorhome, and you're getting it for $100,000. I mean, you couldn't buy a house for $100,000 that had all that stuff already in it that was of any kind of quality. If you consider that, then you think about all the things you wish were better. We would never be able to afford it if they put all the things in we wish were better. So that's, again, one of those compromises. Understand RVs are built good enough and not much better than good enough. And you have to deal with that. Like, I mean, this is a Newmar, but I've got to go and take my step apart and re-screw some wood into it because it pulled out. But whatever, it's wood, it's easy to fix.
Yeah, and we step on it every day.
Yeah.
We especially as full-timers, we use these things a lot more than they ever expect to be used. Yeah. Most of the time, they're thinking about weekenders using it a few times a year, not let's live in it and beat everything like as much as we can, you know?
Yeah.
So we use it a little harder with people.
And something I've learned a lot from people like you and other full-time RVers I've gotten to meet through the club, everybody's needs are a little bit different. And so for you in particular, maybe with your pets, you want to make sure you have super secure steps because you and your dogs are going up and down the steps all day. But maybe someone who's an individual, they aren't so concerned about having like either high quality steps or them in a particular place or whatever. They're more concerned about their lounge space. If they want to have friends over to hang out, like that's their priority, is having that part in the condition they want. And so there's so much customization that happens after an RV is purchased, whether it's like you guys said, whether it's brand new from a dealer or something you're buying used elsewhere or even from a dealer. There's so much customization that happens after the fact that no manufacturer can predict all the things that you specifically are going to want in your rig.
Right.
And do it in a reasonable cost.
Right.
Being full-timers for years now, we would love a 30-foot Class A with no slides that was properly designed with no extra features and everything was kind of simple and mechanical and never broke. But nobody would buy that. Because you'd walk into a dealer and be like, well, this thing's boring. It doesn't get really big and have huge glossy surfaces. But, you know, so we understand where they're coming from. And because lots of people buy used, we don't really get a voice in what the new RVs look like because we're not buying the new RVs.
Yeah.
And something I think I've seen happen quite a bit, maybe you guys can speak to it from your experience with your community. What kinds of things do people what do you see, not necessarily across not answering for everybody, but from what you've seen, what kinds of things do people tend to customize themselves more versus accepting what came as a package deal type of thing?
I've seen a lot of people rip out the couches or chairs that were in there and put in recliners or different more stylish upgrades to that, chairs and couches and things. That's one thing I
think that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah. And then after that, you see people painting the walls, and then
walls and
cabinets. I think is a little bit more of an extreme change that people make. It's actually something we're debating right now what we should do. But yeah, I mean, and like I said, those things are easy enough to change. You can take the furniture out, you can rearrange the inside. It's the bones of the RV, the insulation, the windows, all of the cargo capacity and the tanks and all that you can't really change easily. So it's try to shop with your brain and not as much with your emotions, because, you know, you might find this beautiful thing and there are certain manufacturers that make these beautiful RVs, but they just don't have the capacities and they're not really built for certain types of travel.
Well, so then I think one last question, since we're talking about all these different things for people to consider, the interiors and like all these different facets, as well as their personal preferences and the way that their life will exist inside that rig. What kinds of places do you recommend people go and look just to see what options are out there, even if maybe, that, okay, somebody's looking for an Airstream, so they're really not that interested in a Class A. But there's places they can go and find the variety that they're looking for. But like beyond dealerships, what kinds of options? Because most people know, go look at a dealer. If you want to buy a car, go look at a dealer.
Right.
Beyond dealers, what kinds of things do you suggest? What kind of resources have you found that have been reliable for browsing and shopping around?
The easiest and one of the best ways to go see a bunch of different RVs and be able to go inside them and look is the RV show, which are usually happening from like the beginning of the year until late spring. So look around you. There might be one happening now.
Shows are nice too because there's not as like a high pressure environment because they expect people are just coming in to look and go in and out. So you're not going to have salesmen coming up and wanting to show you everything. You can just go kick the tires and go sit in the RV without getting anybody asking you questions. So that's probably one of the best places because they have so many different kinds there usually, and you can just walk around and go in and out of them. I think YouTube also, just looking at how other people are living in their RV. YouTube and Pinterest, which is funny because I'm like really huge on Pinterest, which is not really the male demographic, but I don't care. There's tons of people showing what they've done with their RV. And I think that's almost better than looking at the bare bones RV as it comes, but to see what it could be so that when you get in these and they're all brown and they look like a corporate boardroom, you're like, well, that doesn't matter. I can fix all that, and you can kind of see what its potential is. Yeah,
you can go with Instagram with that too then, all the social media basically. YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest. You can find a lot of different things on there to kind of get your brain going about what is possible and what you can do. I'm just thinking because we're actually at a campground currently, which hasn't happened in a while, but you can walk through a campground and just kind of see this different stuff out there. I mean, you can't go in the RVs unless you really start chatting somebody up. Because you're like, I have seen people do that. They're like, I love your RV. And they're like, oh, you want to come see it?
Well, we did it just a few weeks back. We were boondocking and someone pulled into the boondocking spot with the exact same RV we have. Same color, same year, everything. And we'd never seen another one exactly the same. And we got to talking to them, and they let us go right in because they had made some upgrades. They changed the countertops and the sinks and the oven, kind of how we wanted to. And it was like, ooh, this is what ours could look like. So it was fun.
I know, it's really funny. My husband and I were camping at East Lake State Park here in Texas a little over a year ago. And we were tent camping. I mean, it was because we don't have an RV, but we ended up camping next to somebody who just that morning, they had flown down from Montana, I think. They flew from Montana to Texas and picked up their Jeep at one dealership in the area, and then drove the Jeep to the RV dealership to pick up their teardrop. And then they went camping for the weekend, and they were so overjoyed, excited. They invited us to climb in their bed and see how it felt. It was so funny, but we actually became Facebook friends. They're very sweet people, and we've been friends for a couple of years now, but some people are just very excited. And we took our dogs for a walk around the campgrounds and happened to just see some fun rigs and saw the people, like the families that own them, sitting outside like, oh my gosh, your rig is really awesome. I love this part. And without us even asking, we were invited several times into rigs. You don't always take people up on it because sometimes it feels a little too invasive, even if they're welcoming you. But we have to see some really great things. And so just being friendly and candid with people that you're around often will open up those opportunities to go and look if you want to. And of course, if somebody doesn't want you to, then they say no, don't get offended either, because that is their home.
Right.
But
it's amazing how RVers are pretty friendly, right? It is amazing how many people open up their home to you, let you come see it.
Another thing is the big rallies and convergences too. It's just kind of expected that, even some of them have like an RV tour time when everybody opens their doors, and it's just kind of expected that you go check out how other people do it so that you can get ideas or see a different way of doing things, or if you have a small RV, you can sit in a bigger RV for a while.
Exactly. Well, we just have two more questions real quick. Les has asked if you can recommend a few brands that are well insulated and maybe good for getting caught in colder climates. He wants to clarify, not that he plans on staying there very long, but things happen.
Right, things do happen.
Well, it depends a lot on if you're looking at a trailer or a fifth wheel or a motorhome. Motorhomes Tiffin, Winnebago, Newmar. That's what we're in. Fifth wheels, Grand Designs and Montanas. And then for travel trailers, there's Lance and a few others. But the thing is really, insulation is an option a lot of times. Mm-hmm. Even this RV we're in, the roof insulation was an added option. The double pane glass windows are an added option. So it's not just so much the manufacturer, but what options do they offer? And you'll find in some brands, they offer what's called 4 seasons package, which is really 3 seasons because they still can't survive the winter.
No RV is as good as a sticks and bricks house.
Yeah.
They're just the walls are just too thin. Yeah, it's insulated as well. So you can get those 4 season packages, but there's no industry standard on that. So you can't think, okay, it has the 4 seasons. It's good enough. Not 4 wheel, 4 seasons package, and it's going to be great because they're all a little different. So you actually need to probably check into like the R rating on the insulation. But
then when you get into higher end brands, like Newmar doesn't have a 4 seasons package because they're all built to a certain level that is 4 seasons survivable. But even all that being said, even our Newmar, if we're in really cold temperatures, we still have to worry about the plumbing. You're still going to have to deal with the plumbing, and especially in trailers where the wind can blow underneath them, you're going to have to deal with that if you get stuck in a really cold climate. And it could be as simple as just winterize it if you're only going to be there for a short time. But if you're going to be there longer, you may need to build a skirting around it to keep the wind from going underneath it and supply some extra heat. But you'll find RVs with tank pad heaters, insulated underbellies, plumbing that runs all through the insulated areas, extra roof insulation, sometimes thicker walls, but that's pretty rare, and double pane glass, which double pane glass from like the early 2000s had a bad issue with fogging up, but they've got that worked out pretty well now. And we haven't had any of these windows fog up on 2012.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on particle board.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we have one last question here from Ken. He's asking if you have any suggestions on locating an inspector to perform a PDI on a used coach.
So yes, and I'm glad that you are thinking about this ahead of time because you definitely want an inspection. Yeah. So that's great. You can actually look at the NRVIA, which is different from the industry RVIA.
Yeah, they're completely separate. They have RVIA decides what kind of plumbing and propane systems you should have in the RV. NRVIA trains inspectors.
Yeah. And so they actually have a database of inspectors that you could find someone who's local and use them.
Another option is mobile mechanics. A lot of mobile RV mechanics will also do inspections. So call around the mobile mechanics in your area and see if they do inspections. And that'll be a great way because they can come out and take care of it. And an inspection should take a few hours. Mm-hmm. If they're in and out in 30 minutes and they give you a 1-page checklist, they didn't do a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. And never use the inspector the dealer recommends. I think that should be obvious because, it'll be his buddy. But yeah, if you don't know RV systems and all the ways RVs can go wrong, then having an inspection is a great way to at least have some security when you start and then maintain it from there.
Right.
Definitely. And if you guys are interested, I did put a link in the chat if you want to copy and paste that into your browser in case you want to take a look at that later. And that's completely correct. I listen to a lot of podcasts and consistently I hear that the dealer will always, especially when you're buying brand new or actually I think it's primarily brand new, that they almost always do their own PDI, their own pre-delivery inspection. But that's just what they have to do, and that all they're going through is making sure that doors open and close correctly and that appliances will turn on and off. They don't care if they turn on to the right temperature or run the right amount of time. Just do they turn on and off? Do all the outlets work like they're supposed to work? And then they hand you the keys. Whereas if you're able to, and it's not always possible, but if you're able to, get your own inspector to go to the dealer before you accept that delivery and do the same type of inspection, but really dig deep. That way you can know, like you guys were just talking before about warranty issues. That way, before you take possession of it, if there are any major issues, that you don't have to fight warranty later because you can prove before I ever touched these list of things were wrong. And it's not, and the sad thing is, just like with home inspections, inspectors aren't free. You do have to pay for that. But sometimes if you come across, especially with the used vehicle or used RV, you find some pretty serious issues that $200 or so or a little bit more you may have spent on inspection could have saved you several grand and wasted money later, or time you couldn't travel because your rig was being worked on.
Right, absolutely.
And even when we're talking about a new RV, there's a thing called lot rot. And a brand new RV can have old tires on it. Not terribly old, but in the general sense of RVing, you're thinking you should replace the tires every 5 to 7 years. Well, if it's a motorhome or a trailer, that chassis was built probably a year before, or 6 months to a year before it was assembled into a motorhome. Those tires sat in a warehouse sometime before that. I mean, you could get a brand new RV with tires that are a year or 2 years old already. And then you got to think about that. That just means you're going to probably be looking at replacing those tires sooner than you would if they were new. So maybe that's a negotiating point. And then the other issue is the batteries.
Yeah, we've been in the factories. We've seen, just even in the factories, they will run the radios and the lights and everything else and run those batteries down. And then
they run them down to empty, which you should never do.
Yeah, which you don't do with batteries. And then when they are sitting on the lot, the dealer lot, they could be, again, flipped on, lights come on, the TV's on to show off stuff. And that, again, just gets run down to zero.
Yeah, the salespeople don't charge the batteries until they don't work.
Right, and it's harder to charge there because they're out in a lot without electricity. So trying to move that stuff to charge them, they don't want to have to go try to plug in. Where do they get a 30 or 50 amp plug all the time?
So a lot of times people...
So it's just, the batteries are not at their capacity. Like they're going to have to be replaced a lot sooner.
Yeah, a lot of times people with new RVs end up replacing batteries within a year or so, which they're like, what's wrong with my charging system and all of that? And it's not your fault. Maybe you did everything right, but before it got to you, it was mistreated. And again, that's a negotiating point. Maybe get them to go ahead and put in new batteries, or just, have those checked out. And I had another good point that I'm forgetting, but no, I got it. That pre-delivery inspection, when you have that list of things that, pieces of trim that need to be replaced, a slide that doesn't align quite right, whatever, on a brand new RV, don't leave the lot until it's done, because they will tell you, oh yeah, go ahead and take it, go camp, go have fun, and then just bring it back and we'll take care of it. Once you've signed the paper, it's yours. And, they shift a lot. Once it gets pushed over to service, things start to change. So really kind of be a little bit rude, get it taken care of before you leave. And that way you'll have a better experience.
And there's two different departments. Sales and service are two different departments. So you need to make sure that your salesman's not promising something that actually can't get done with service.
Because they've got a 2-month backlog.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it looks like we've covered all the questions that came in, and we're hitting right at an hour. So thank you both so much for taking the time to go through this and for sharing your information and sharing your resources. I think it's been fantastic. I know I've learned a lot, and hopefully our attendees have as well. And so if anybody is interested still, there is the link again in the chat screen if you want to go look at their power pack on their website and where you can download it. And the follow-up email that'll come out in a couple of days, I'll have the links in there as well. And then once we put the recording up on YouTube and our website, we'll also have the information there. So just in case you miss it today, or you catch this at a later viewing, that information should be available for you to go ahead and take a look at that, because there's some really great information in there.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Les. Thanks for hanging out and watching.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us as well. And we appreciate your time this afternoon. And I hope everybody has a great day.
Bye.
Well, thank you.
Now we can go get pizza.
Yay!